All right.
Ready?
3. Mm-hmm. 3, 2,
2.
1. Okay. Here we go. So I'm sorry that you're not feeling well, but this is actually this is going to be a perfect episode for you, Lucy, because you get to
Is
kick
it?
back. You get to kick back,
Can
relax.
I fall asleep?
And listen. Although maybe we would get through things faster if you were snoozing.
Are you saying that I talk too much? I think it's the other way around, actually.
Okay. Well, actually, after having listened back to the last episode, yes, I was like so annoyed with myself. I'm like, Karen, shut the fuck up. No one cares about 18-minute description of what a close is. Good Lord. Ridiculous.
That was so funny.
Oh my gosh. That's when I've had too many drinks. I'm like, shut up. I'm only having one drink today and it's very low alcohol content, but isn't it beautiful?
It's beautiful. I'm on herbal tea because I'm full of the cold that's not COVID that's going around. That horrible stinking cold that's not COVID.
Yeah, it is.
Sean caught it in Edinburgh.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I know, because your immune system's like, what is this world that I'm been not living in for 2 years?
People from all over the country and other countries going around all the tourist things.
I know. I'm flying to New York on Monday and I'm like, what am I going to come home with? Should be interesting, but I'm going to mask up with my N95, get like the thickest, get like a motorcycle helmet and put it on and just not breathe any air the whole time.
A hazmat suit.
Yes. Yep. That's right. One of those amazing like face headgears with the like 2 knobs for breathing.
Please do and take a photo. That would be hilarious.
Lovely selfie. Oh my gosh. You don't hate me this week, but I'm switching topics and I'm also stealing a listener story.
Ooh.
I know. And I almost feel guilty, but I'm not taking them all. I'm just taking 2. I'm leaving some for you because this one woman, Loretta, she took her time and wrote out some amazing stories. Amazing. So I saved some for you.
Something?
Of course.
I also didn't read that.
Oh, good.
Because I knew that I wanted to keep it as a super surprise. So it's going to be a surprise to me, which is cool.
That's super cool. So she wrote in 2 ghost stories. And I believe, I'm trying to remember if it was 1 or 2. I know it's at least 1, if not 2 fairy stories. And I was supposed to do dragons this week. We did them a little bit in our Celtic Collective Zoom yesterday. And a lot of things came up with work and that I didn't have time to finish my research. So I just was feeling uninspired a little bit for that, maybe because I just covered it a tiny bit. And so I was looking online. I had like, look at this story. Look at these stories. Like,
oh my God,
a beefy, big, fat story. And then I thought, well, Halloween though is right around the corner. How can we just skip past so quickly all the Halloween
We're not
stuff.
Though. I'm gonna find something super spooky for you for Halloween. I know,
but dragons is not Halloweeny. We can wait for that. Not. So I was like, let's go back and do ghosts. She wrote in really 2 ghost stories, and they're not super scary, but they are super cool because they're like when ghosts happen to normal people kind of story, but like good interactive. So I'm not gonna spoil it, but I'm gonna read hers.
Well, but hang on a minute.
What?
I don't know if I'm ready for another ghost story, because can I tell you that I freaked myself out 3 times last week. The first time was actually 4 times. The first time was going into the vaults.
Oh yeah.
The second time was when I was doing research for last week's episode, where I then watched the videos about the vaults with the chanting. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, go back and listen to it, but you do need to go and search on YouTube for that video with
no,
the
you don't
chanting
have to
because it's super.
they don't have to
spooky.
search. I literally brought it to the blog. They just need to go to onescott1not.com and look at our last week's episode. And I uploaded the video right there and the photo that you sent me. So it's all right there.
Even
for them.
better.
Yeah.
So I freaked myself out listening to it. I then freaked myself out when we recorded because we talked about it again. And then I freaked myself out a fourth time when I edited the episode, and I had to listen to the stories all over again.
Well, that's
and I had at least 4 nights where I went to bed and I couldn't stop thinking about this chanting in the vaults and the child's voice. So you're saying that you're going to do this to me all over again. Thank you very much, Karen
Okay.
Campbell.
Well,
it's
first
a good
of all,
job that you're a good friend of mine, because otherwise I would.
Okay. Well, first of all, this is why I don't edit anything, because then I don't have to listen back to it. So that's what you get.
Yeah, but I had to edit because there was a lot of ridiculous, nonsensical chat that needed to be removed.
What? I don't even know what you're talking about. And actually this week is not scary because these stories are just cool and interesting. They're really, seriously, they're not scary. They're just cool and interesting, I promise. And then I'm going to be reading an article that was published by the Association for Psychological Science about what ghosts feel from their perspective. I know. So we're turning ghosts on their heads this week, and we are going to have a little ghost empathy rocking. So don't be such a narcissist. We can feel sorry for them. It's all about you, Lucy. You're not even thinking about how the poor ghost would feel. How do you think they would feel if you were trapped in someone's house for eternity? They're tortured too.
I would hate it, but love it at the same time, because you could really
mess
really
with people.
Tricksy and mess with people.
Look at your little face. You just got so excited about the thoughts of it. So
I know.
So you just got to flip that fear on its head, my friend.
But I know I've mentioned this before. That is the thing that freaks me out the most, is feeling like someone is watching me. And that they're seeing everything I'm doing.
Well, just do a little dance. Do a little naked dance. I'd be like, you want a little of this? You want a little of this? Like squeeze your like fat chunks. Be like, not that you have any.
What you were gonna say.
I'm feeling my own fat chunks while I'm saying that. See if you can horrify the ghost.
Give them a little show.
Yeah. Be like, well, you're just standing
naked
there.
Dance show. I don't think they want to see that. That might scare them away.
Well, then there you go. Problem solved. All right. So are you ready for the story? I'm going to dive in.
Yeah.
My problem is actually my glasses, because I'm at that stage when I need distance and up close, and I can't figure out which ones I need for this. Hold on. Let's experiment. Oh God. That's really big, and my mic is in my face.
Two middle-aged ladies
I know.
doing a podcast, unable to hold their drink and unable to see anything
with my far glasses. This is like a legit problem. Okay, I'm gonna go for that. All right, Loretta, first of all, huge thanks for submitting these, because I'm sure that took a lot of time to type these out. So we really appreciate you. All right. So, ghost one of 2 stories. So one encounter was with my dead grandfather that may or may not have been a dream. The other was a 20-minute conversation I had with a ghost. I grew up in a suburb of St. Louis. I still live in the burbs of St. Louis, just a different one than I did when I was a kid. My dad had a very large family, and I used to go and spend a week or 2 every summer with different uncles who had kids the same age as me. One lived in the city of St. Louis. He had 2 kids. The boy, Eugene, was literally only 2 weeks younger than me. We were about 9 or 10 when this happened. So during one of these week-long visits with them, we went next door to play with our neighbors. Now, the neighbors lived in a big 2-story old house. I've driven by it recently, and it's way smaller than I remembered, but it was still a big old Victoria home. I just thought as a kid it was like a 4-story behemoth. Anyway, we went over there one day to play with their kids. My cousin Donna stayed down on the first level while Eugene and I went upstairs to throw a ball back and forth down the really long hallway.
Oh no, you don't want to throw a ball back and forth down a hallway in a Victorian home.
Yeah, but they're two.
That's
They're playing.
a bad idea.
They're playing together. One of our neighbor kids called Eugene downstairs. And so, me, being an extremely nosy child, still am, noticed a light on at the end of the hallway. So I went down to that room, and inside was an ancient woman sitting in a rocking chair. The room was glowing in golden lamplight and fully finished with antiques. She told me to come in, and so I did. She began talking to me, and she asked me to open a cedar chest. Then she started taking things out and showing me what was inside. She had old photos, and she told me who they were, plus postcards from her trip around the world. I think that's one of the things that really struck me. Oh, excuse me. That really stuck with me is how much she had traveled when she was a young woman, because I thought it was so amazing. Now, I've always been fascinated with old people, old stories, old buildings, antiques, old photos. So for me to be really interested in what she was saying was so normal. In fact, I'd have rather talk to her than play with the other kids. My major in college was history with an emphasis on art history. I've since delved into folklore big time. I own most of the books you guys do, plus a few more you might be interested in. So after a while, Eugene called my name for the end of the hall, and I said to the lady whose name I can't remember. For years, I thought she just didn't tell me her name, but now that I think on it, I imagine she would have told me and I just can't remember. That I would come back another day and ran down off the hall. As we were headed down the staircase, I glanced back toward the room and it was dark. I remember that specifically because I thought it was strange that she'd turned her light off in a matter of seconds of me leaving. So we headed back to my husband's house. And by husband's, I mean cousin's house. And the next day, my aunt asked me if we had a nice time over at the neighbor's house. I said yes, especially talking to the grandma. I assumed the old lady was the grandma, but I honestly didn't know if she had any relation to anybody in the house. That was just my child mind assumption. My aunt had stopped chopping carrots or something. She just stopped and said, "What do you mean there, grandma?" So I explained to her about the room upstairs and the lady, and and then watched as the color visibly drained from her face, and she became pretty upset. So the backstory to this moment that I was unaware of at the time was that the neighbors were constantly telling my aunt how they had trouble with this one room upstairs. It was just a storage room. Old homes like these Victorian ones often have more rooms than you need. Clearly, they were not crafters, quilters, or artists. That's an inside joke for me and Lucy because we are artists and have hordes of shit in our houses.
I don't have my background photo on today.
Oh, right.
I just left it. Look at the hordes of shit behind me. That's why I normally have.
I know. We just saw my studio right now. It's a freaking disaster. Apparently there had been a few items left in from the previous owners when they thought they had bought it. And apparently that cedar chest was one of those. They would wake up in the middle of the night and the light would be on in that room. They'd turn it off, get up the next day, and it would be back on again. Sometimes the lady of the house would see that the blinds were up, so she'd go in and pull the blinds down. Walk by 20 minutes later, she's the only one home, and they'd be up again. She had jokingly said to my aunt on more than one occasion that she thought the house was haunted, but that the ghost seemed docile, so she wasn't going to worry about it. So cavalier. Oh my God.
I know.
My uncle mentioned a few times coming home after being out with buddies and noticing that the shades were up on that window and a light on while the rest of the house was asleep. In addition to that, my aunt already knew that her neighbors only had one surviving parent between the two of them, and it was the husband's father, not the mother. So my aunt called the neighbor and said, "I didn't know you had company this week. Who is the elderly relative that's visiting?" Now, what followed was my aunt beginning to shake and got even more pale, if that's possible. It seems they had nobody staying with them or visiting them, elderly or otherwise. My aunt said, "Are you telling me you don't have an elderly lady staying over?" The neighbor replied that it was just her husband, and their two kids. Why? So days later, after I got home to my house, my aunt called and told my mother what had happened. My mom freaked out at first, but then after talking to my dad, they decided, since they didn't believe in ghosts, that I had to have made up the whole thing. I had to have made up the whole thing. So my mom asked if I'd made it up, and I said, no, why would I do that? I hadn't known any of the backstory, even if I wanted to make something up. And so my mom said, "Well, Loretta, You had a conversation with a woman who wasn't there. And I need to know if you're a crazy, a liar, or a psychic. I cannot tell you or even describe appropriately the feeling that came over me. I thought it was going to be sick. The hair rose up on the back of my neck. I got goosebumps and I broke out in a sweat. Clearly, 45 years later, I'm 55 now, the woman in the room showing me her keepsakes from a cedar chest has stayed with me. I can clearly remember what her floor lamp even looked like. As a footnote, I will say that my aunt talked to the neighbor again a few days later and asked her to be honest about whether or not she had a guest, because the little girl, me, who had talked to the old lady, was going to get into major trouble for lying and making up such a story, and that if I had made up the story, my aunt really needed to know. The neighbor told her again there was nobody in their house except her husband, and the 2 kids, but that she had hoped I didn't get into too much trouble because really that room was so odd. My aunt believed I talked to a ghost. My parents, who didn't really believe in that sort of thing, did not. They decided that of the 3, crazy, liar, or psychic, I had to be a liar. I got grounded for a month. My aunt was so angry over that. She told me a few years later that my punishment was unfair and that had she had known I was going to get in any trouble, she never would have even mentioned the whole incident to my mother. Also, my dad didn't believe anything supernatural. My mother believed that most likely none of that thing was real as well, but that she couldn't say definitely, so she still got in trouble. So,
oh my goodness.
how was
What
that
a cool
for a ghost story,
story.
right?
And Loretta, so nicely written as well.
I
so well written.
really appreciate that. Yeah,
Thank
I
you
didn't have to.
so much.
I didn't have to fill in anything. I know. It was amazing.
I have to say that when you first mentioned that she went in and there was an old woman and that she was speaking to her, I kind of knew what was coming, because I was like, oh my God, she's going to be a ghost. She's going to be a ghost.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you spoke to someone and they were, in all intents and purposes, like a real person,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't find out all that information until afterwards, then that's not a scary experience.
No, it
at the
wouldn't
time,
be.
surely, because you
right.
would just think it was a person. And then I'm kind of thinking, who is that woman? I wonder whether she was ever able to do any research about the previous residents. Like, what you would want to do is to try and find photographs of the
Right.
previous residents to see if that woman was in photographs or if they could name her.
Sure.
That
Yeah,
would be so cool.
that would be really cool.
And then I also think, sorry,
No,
I also think about that.
We're the worst. Go ahead.
I also think, sorry, I'll cut that bit out. I also think about that that old woman as a ghost is she stuck in that room? That's like worse than like
I know
3 months of COVID isolation.
I know. Well, that's
like being stuck in a room for all eternity.
I know. That's why I think a lot of them are so grumpy, because they are bored. They're literally tethered to those places. And I think that's why ghost forensics are always like, are you sad that you're stuck here? Like in poltergeists who are chucking things around because they're like, get me the fuck out of here. I've been out of this fucking room for 100 years. And they're like chucking saucers. Like, can you even blame them? That's why I like thinking about it from the ghost perspective.
I can empathize,
right?
I can empathize with the ghost and how annoying it must be. Especially if the alternative is like going to it. If the alternative is to going to some magical kingdom or being reincarnated into another person,
right?
What makes some people being stuck in this constant purgatory?
Right.
Because some ghosts are thousands of years old. So although we always seem to see Victorian ghosts or Tudor ghosts, and it never seems to be like Robin from Ghosts. You know who I mean?
Caveman. He's a caveman ghost. Why are there not more caveman ghosts?
I know. I'd love to see I don't know if I'd love to see a caveman ghost, but we never see caveman ghosts, do we?
No.
So maybe there's a finite amount of time before they get to escape, or maybe they just fade away after a while.
You know, dumbly, I have not had those thoughts, and now I have a million of those thoughts
all the time, Karen. Maybe not all the time, because if I thought about them all the time, I'd never get any sleep.
No,
because
you would
I'd
not.
super freak myself out.
Yes.
But I do wonder about them.
Well, and it also makes me want to think about ghosts like in other places of the world as well, and if they have similarities or differences. Like, are those ghosts are they in from the same time periods that the Scotland ghosts are from? You know, because like I think there's spirits in like every culture, and then like, what about ghosts that people saw in Victorian age? Are there ghosts all from like the 1600s and so on and so forth? Is there like a 200-year window where they all just appear? Although
I wonder that a lot.
Although remember, Ginger said that the ghost of the boy that she saw was wearing 1930s clothing, and that Lee wears 1970s, 60s or 70s clothing. And so that seems to be variable time frame for those ghosts. We need to have her on again.
To us, Lee is our friend Ginger, who came on as a guest quite early on. I can't remember what episode it is, but she has a ghost in her house called Lee. She has interacted with him and seen him. So in fact, she even commented on our Instagram like yesterday or today to say they've had another Lee encounter.
Oh, really?
Her son, her son was sitting in his room at his desk, and there was a bottle actually tipping from side to side.
Stop it.
God. Yeah. And there was another one. I should find it.
Can you find it?
Nattering on about something else.
I know.
Find what she wrote.
I know. Can you find it? I would love to hear what she said. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm gonna read it out.
Yeah, please.
I found it super quick.
Good.
So she commented on our Instagram where I had posted the photo from the Edinburgh Vaults and said that we were both freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ginger wrote, if you were both freaked out, then it must have been a good one. Lots of sightings here these past few weeks. My son, nearly 18 years old, got super freaked out one evening last week. He was sitting at his desk in his room when an empty soda bottle started rocking back and forth on its own. Not a jiggle, true rocking. He wasn't anywhere near it and no one else was in the room. Needless to say, he spent the rest of the evening in the living room with us. I told him it was simply Lee trying to tell him to clean his room. We've all seen Lee at various times lately. He likes hanging out in the hallway between our bedrooms and in the kitchen.
Oh my God.
My daughter, who was home last week for break, watched him go from our room into my son's room.
Oh, he is a member of their family.
I know.
It's really freaky. And her whole attitude is, Ginger, girlfriend, I don't know how you do it. She is so carefree. She is so carefree about it. I wish I had like 1% of her carefreeness. I would be terrified. Like, he likes to hang out in the hallway. That means anytime you have to go from A to B, you could I'd be like, I would just be like singing la 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 like hallway every time. How do you like go about your normal day with like always having like an impending figure there? It's like having a snake lost in your house and you don't know when or where it's going to show up. That's how I feel about ghosts. They give me that same fear of like snakes, like where they're unexpected. You don't know when you're going to see one, but you know when you do, you're going to be terrified of it.
Well, we don't have that snaky problem really here in Scotland, so I can't really identify with that. But I would feel like it's a little bit for me with almost feels like if you were in a building and it had hidden cameras.
Oh, when because they're you don't like the watching you part.
It's the watching part that
doesn't actually bother me, because I'm like, I am so boring. Like, have fun. Like, you can watch all day long. Like, nothing to see here. What I don't like is me running into them unexpected, like that anticipation that you could see something, but you don't know when or where. That's my thing. I cannot get over.
But I think that usually it would happen so unexpectedly that you wouldn't realize until after it happened, and then by that point you weren't scared of it.
No, then I've already had a heart attack and died. What are you talking about? God.
But then you get to join the ghost, so it's all good. If you have a heart attack and die, then you're just joining your ghosted friends.
God.
You're becoming
Just-
part of the party. There might be more of a party there than there is here.
I'll
You might find that
scream.
you die of a heart attack and then suddenly you're in your house filled with the party.
I
And
should
you're like, get the cocktails out. This is fun.
I should be used to this because Sean loves to try to scare the shit out of me. He loves to try to get me to jump scare. One time he put my Jamie from Outlander cardboard cutout, he brought him upstairs and he put him in our bathroom. So when you go into our bathroom, you have to go through these double doors. Here, I'm going to show you. I'm going to turn my camera. So if you go through those double doors, that's our bathroom.
And
And
the
then
one
our
that Sean always comes out half
'cause
naked
he
while we're
always
filming.
showers while we're podcasting weirdly. And to the left of that door,
I
there's
think he
like
does that on purpose. He's hoping that he's going to get the adoration of lots of middle-aged ladies on our YouTube
like,
channel.
why is it? And we always podcast at like this weird time. Like, why? So he goes in there, and then there's another door directly to the left, which is like our commode. It's like literally a room with just a toilet in it. And he put Jamie there. So you walk in there, and there's mirrors. I was home alone. I turn, and it's like out of the corner of your eye, like that's what catches it first. You don't like, and oh my, I
Mhm.
fucking I screamed, Johnny, like bloody murder, like it's so shocking. And that feeling, I hate it. I was so mad. I get so mad. I just get instant angry. I would just be so scared. I get so pissed. Don't like that.
Can I tell you about a spooky thing that happened to me the other night?
Yeah. Was it in your Edinburgh trip?
No,
Or at
it was at
home?
home. So
Ooh.
and I'm sure it was just I dreamt it or something, but when you hear a noise and the noise wakes you up and you pretty much know that it was the noise that woke you up, that you didn't dream the noise.
Yeah. Mhm.
But at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning one
Ooh.
night,
That's a scary time.
I heard this very specific noise of my downstairs door that goes from the living room into the hallway closing and clicking shut.
Ooh. Yeah. I know there was nobody
And
down there.
The noise woke me up. But yeah, there was I was a little bit, actually, I did go and check because I wouldn't have got back to sleep again.
Right.
But there was nobody there. It was so
Ooh.
weird.
Was Sasha home at the time?
Fast asleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I always ask because there is a difference when you're truly home alone and when there's someone in your house sleeping. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm always comforted by just having anyone there, even if they're in a coma,
I know.
So would you have been more scared had he not been home? I would have been. Or you also have
I might
neighbors.
I might not have gotten back to I don't think my neighbors would be any help if I had a ghost.
I know, but just the whole sense again of like a warm live body close by is always comforting in those times, unless it's a bad person, in which case no. Yeah, that's super creepy. And I hate that when your mind plays tricks on you too. That's like when I was in the Savannah Hotel and I heard the water running in the bathroom. And even though I'm like, I can hear the water running right now in the bathroom, I still am like doubted myself. Like, oh, is it really though? But I'm like, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Like I can hear it clear as day. Why wouldn't that? Why? I know what water running sounds like. Why would that be wrong?
This was a very specific noise of the door closing. And
so was it closed when you came down? Was it closed and latched?
I close it when I go to bed because I don't want my cat jumping on my face in the middle of the night.
Oh, I kind of love
that. So I close that door so the cat's locked in to that area of the house at night because he's such an old man that
but if it was already closed, was it open and then reclosed? Is that what you're saying?
Well, a ghost did it, maybe.
You had that shadowy encounter in your kitchen. That story freaks me out a little.
That's why it freaked me out, because it sounded like it was definitely that noise.
Did you tell Sasha?
Anyway,
the next
this
day?
is turning into
You're getting
into the
all
close
scary.
of this
And
episode.
it is. Okay, yeah, we need to stop. Okay, let's go on to second story. We need to take a nod from Dan Cummings and move the fuck along faster.
My God, he's so amazing.
I love
Let's
him.
just take a segue to recommend his podcast.
Yes. It's called Time Suck with Dan Cummings. And now it's the only podcast that I will listen to for at least a week straight. And he also makes me feel better because our podcasts are stupid long and his are even longer than ours. Thank you so much, by like an hour. But he
doesn't speak crap.
No. And he covered 1,000 years of the Dark Ages in 2.5 hours. And I'm saying he covered every last shred of it too. Like he's hilarious.
Yeah. And I love how he calls things like
meat sticks
that suck, the suckers, yes. And the
mm-hmm. He's like, what's up?
I did a suck stick on that.
Mm-hmm. I know we have to have fun names for our 2 listeners. Ghosty friends. I don't know. I'll have to think of that. Fairy friends. All right. You ready for this second story?
Yes.
Okay. My dad grew up in Southeast Missouri in a place called Cedar Fork in Perry County, Missouri. No idea where any of those places are, but Midwest.
I've been to Missouri.
Oh,
have you not been?
Never been. Nope.
I went to a rainbow gathering there.
A rainbow gathering? That just conjures up a lot of pictures in my head of a lot of weed.
Probably. Yeah.
Weed and incense and Birkenstocks.
Yeah.
I would love that in college. Yeah. Yes.
It was in the 90s while you were in Scotland and I was in the States.
So crazy.
Yeah. We hitchhiked across the country from New York to California. And we stopped in Missouri and went to a rainbow gathering for 3 weeks and like camped in the mountains.
For 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Was unplanned?
We knew it was there. We planned to go there, but we camped up in the mountains for 3 weeks and just like cooked on a fire and washed in the river and did all kinds of hippie things. Yeah, it was super good fun.
That's insane. We need to have a whole podcast episode dedicated to your rainbow trilogy week, try week. I need to know more about that. I only read one sentence and we're already tangenting.
Okay.
Back on track, Miss Bryden. Okay. His father, my grandfather, passed away on Easter in 1976, the year of my birth. So I would have been 10 and a half. So not too much time after the incident with my cousin's ghost neighbor. Anyway, a lot of the family had gone down to my grandparents' house for the week to help my grandma and to prepare for the funeral, etc. My dad was the youngest of 9. So imagine an old salt box type of house bursting at the seams with several generations of offspring there. As a result, most of the kids were made to sleep upstairs in the attic. Ugh. My grandma's attic was just one long room that ran the length of the house that had a window on each end. If you're over 5'5", the only way you could stand up straight was if you walked right in the center of the room. Anyway, they lived on 22 acres, but were surrounded by nothing but wilderness and other people's farms. There was a church and cemetery about a half a mile up the road, the old schoolhouse a few miles away, a creek in the other direction. Otherwise, there was nothing but other farms for at least 10 miles in any direction. This was my most favorite place on the planet when I was growing up. So about 3 days after Grandpa died, I'm crammed like a sardine, 3 kids to a bed, 4 full-size beds lined up across the attic full of mouth-breathing cousins, moonlit shining through the window, when suddenly I heard a noise outside. I got up, went to the window, and I could see my grandpa out in the garden picking up rocks and tossing them in an old metal bucket. Now, at that point, it didn't occur to me that he was dead. I was confused as to why he'd be outside picking up rocks in the middle of the night. So I went down the attic stairs, a feet in the middle of the night, through the house, out the back door, and out to the garden. What happened then was a typical exchange of conversation between him and me. He was just a few days short of being 84. I would ask a million questions. He'd give me a throaty laugh and then a 1 or 2 word answer. Then he began to talk. And he talked and talked about how the work on the farm needed to be done. I started picking up rocks too. He was worried about who was going to carry on. And then it hit me and I said, wait, you're dead. he smiled at me. And for a second, I didn't react. But then my brain was like, he's dead. He's dead. And he's there standing in front of you. It freaked me out completely. I turned and ran back to the house. I tripped over something, fell in a gooseberry bush, managed to get up, and I was running all the way back to the house when I fell. And again, this time I rolled down a slight hill and hit my head. The next thing I knew, it was morning and I was in the attic. As soon as I woke up, I started crying because I thought I dreamt about my grandfather who just passed away. Only my cousin woke up next to me and said, "What happened to you? What's in your hair?" I reached up and I had a big knot on my head. Grass and twigs were all in my hair, scratches on my arms, and grass stains all over my knees and the palms of my hands. So, was that an active sleepwalking dream, or did I have a conversation with my dead grandfather in the middle of the night? The thing is, I didn't even remember actually falling asleep. Loretta.
Oh, I love that.
I know, I do too.
I wonder what it was.
What it was too, but she really was outside. I love that there was like evidence of what had happened, but she didn't remember going to her.
I might have just not listened to this bit or missed it out. But how long previously had her grandfather died?
It was like 3 days. They were there for the funeral.
Well, you do hear quite often about people seeing people that have just passed away.
Mm-hmm.
It's like those people kind of come and visit just before they go.
Yeah. I thought when I was younger, so my grandmother lived with us from the time that I was 5 years old. And then she died. This is a little scary. She died on Halloween when I was 13. She actually died in the house. And I remember a couple times I still remember it clear as day in my head of remember like going to the top of my stairs because she had her own little apartment. My parents like built on a little apartment for her. So she had her own space, and seeing her distinctly at the bottom of my stairs. And I remember it was after she had died. And when I woke up and I was like, God, I felt like she came to see me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know I was dreaming, but it was almost like a ghost because it was like, it was different than a dream where I was watching things. It was like she had came to be present for me, you know, clearly up, but it was very closely after she had died. And this is so bad, but I was so young that I really thought that I have never like announcing this to the world. I really thought I had something to do with her death, because as a teenager, she and my mom did not get along like at all. And so they would fight. They fought so much. And I hated and my mom was very controlling and my grandmother was very controlling. And I really hated having so many like parental units, like a extra one in the house when I was already like bursting and had enough with the two that I already had. And I was so resentful. And I felt so strongly, like I was angry towards her, you know, and I wished so many times that like she didn't live with us and she wasn't there. And then she fucking died. And I really, truly felt responsible for that happening. I really, truly did. Because she was perfectly healthy, you know what I mean? Like totally fine. And then on Halloween, she died in her room on the phone with the EMS.
So maybe her little visit was her letting you know that was okay, that it wasn't your fault.
I would like to think that is true, but I doubt it. I don't know that I'm that lucky. But I do feel forever badly about my attitude.
You do know that humans have like 50 million bad thoughts a day, and that if every single one came true, then the world would be even more horrible. There would be like more people dropping down dead.
I know. But I will always feel so badly about that in particular. She was just she was so
and
sweet.
Actually, Karen, if that was true, there might be other people that I would gladly like make myself have those thoughts over.
Wait, are you killing people off in your head right now? Is that what's happening to make me feel better? That is so nice. I actually really appreciate that. You are a true friend, Lucy.
I'm just
I'd
have
kill
the
that
power
guy
of-
and that guy and that guy.
So you're not alone. So you haven't murdered people with your minds. Can you
Mind
imagine?
bullets.
Can you imagine the power? The power! If you could murder people with your mind, who would you murder?
Well, when I was 13, I guess I would have murdered my poor grandmother. Oh man.
I can think of a
So
few
bad.
politicians I'd like to get rid of.
Yeah. I've said out loud quite a few times when a certain president
British and American.
Yes. Yeah, right. Same.
Oh
my
God, can you
gosh.
imagine if we like logged onto Twitter or Facebook in half an hour and it would be like blah blah blah.
Oh my
Like,
God.
Oh my God, we
Oh
are
my God.
magic.
We're having a podcast mini-sode to announce that we do have actual mind bullets and so just passed.
Like walking down the street, like you see those adverts for people that suddenly get the power because they've got like a special washing liquid or something, and they're like walking down the street going, whoa, whoa, and like blasting things. We'd be like, you're dead, and you're dead, and you're dead.
And they literally die. Yes. Good riddance. Oh, wait, that's a little dark.
Yeah, we're really not that evil. This is just comedy for
No.
comedy value. Honestly, we're
No.
like,
A
unicorns
bunch of
and
idiots
puppies.
is what we are. Yeah. But my poor grandmother, she was so sweet. And she was so German and be like, oh, du Lieber, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, are you ready to hear about what ghosts feel?
I would love to know what ghosts feel. If
All
you
right.
have that expertise and you have gone
Yes.
into the other side and asked one and interviewed them, but please don't play the actual tape to me because I'll never get to sleep ever again.
Well, this was a scientific article that was published in September of 2016.
Scientific.
Yeah.
Scientific.
It was by the Association for Psychological Science.
Oh.
And the name of this article is What Do Ghosts Feel? You ready?
Oh God, yeah, I'm ready. I'm like 100% ready. I've been wondering this for like the last 20 years.
Okay.
At least.
I'm trying to think if I should cut any of this out. It's a little, I might have to abbreviate it. It is widely known and accepted that people are afraid of ghosts. But what do ghosts themselves feel? Are they sad that they died? Do they enjoy scaring us? The field of ghosts is arguably one of the fastest growing disciplines in psychology today. Emotion laboratories worldwide, most noticeably the newly founded Center for Research on Emotion, Ectoplasm, and Psychological Science at a university in Milan, Italy, are turning their attention to the incorporeal sciences. Moreover, ghost emotion research has gained much credibility with funding agencies, as it is the only field in psychology in which luminaries like Jean Piaget and Sigmund Freud remain available for consultation.
They're consulting old scientists that are dead.
Yep.
Grave. Oh my goodness.
The science of ghost
Got my tea
emotions.
ready for
There
this.
you go. The science of ghost emotions dates back to Charles Darwin, who proposed that certain emotions were passed down from the living to the dead through evolution. Indeed, his masterworks, The Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animus, and On the Origin of Specters, are undying classics in the field. William James, who had an interest in spiritualism, famously wrote that ghosts do not cause us to feel fear. Rather, it is the experience of fear that summons ghosts to us.
Oh, that's a little bit like victim blaming. Like you brought that ghost upon yourself because you were
hadn't
scared.
been scared.
Which actually means, Karen, you better watch out because you are the biggest fearty of all of us.
Shit.
So you're the one that's gonna bring the ghost.
Oh shit. Well, if they
know.
weren't so
I'm gonna-
snake-like, I wouldn't have anything to fear. If they were like,
gonna-
knock, 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 Karen, I'm around the corner. Just FYI.
Oh no, that's spookier. That's
No, I would
spookier.
appreciate a little bit of a warning.
What, that ghost like gently
Yes.
taps on a door and whispers?
I would like
That's
a
like the stuff of nightmares. Whoops.
knock, knock. A
See,
little
what's scared?
polite, a little polite
No.
knock. You want them to just be standing there like Lee in the hallway,
Wow.
rocking back my empty can. No, thank you. Hello, I'm here. No. Where was I? Oh, in the modern day, there are several schools of thought on ghost emotions. The most well-known is the theory of the basic ghost emotions, which posits 3 criteria. The emotion must exist from the moment of death, have a unique and spooky expression, and be found in the other ghosts of other animals. The most studied ghost emotion, the desire to scare, known in literature as boo.
Oh my fucking God. This article's amazing already.
Is claimed to meet these criteria. In particular, the wide-eyed, open-mouthed facial expression associated with the experience of boo is said to be universal among ghosts, at least among those with faces. Search for the hypothetical boo circuit is ongoing. A second school of thought comes from evolutionary psychology, wherein the primary question is one of ancestry. Were the emotions of ghosts designed for our hominin ancestors who perished on the African savanna? Or do they extend further back to our primate ancestors who plummeted out of trees? Some proponents trace the roots of ghost emotion circuitry all the way back to squashed insects. Of particular note is evolutionary psychology fascination with ghosts who come into existence through decapitation. For some reason, these spirits often
please don't talk about decapitation. That's the thing that freaks me out the most.
Oh, I don't know why that would be particularly freaky.
Well, but you know that they say that people have like they'll have like particular fears, just like how I know I'm totally digressing. You know how you said in that article that like the emotion comes down through the ancestors. Like there's also a theory that you've got particular fears because past lives that you lived had something that happened to you, and then you're particularly scared of that particular thing. And like I remember when I was younger, I used to lie in bed and imagine guillotines, and it would fucking freak me out.
Did you say guillotine? You know it's guillotine, right? Okay.
Okay, I'm Scottish. You can't pronounce Edinburgh, don't.
We shall not talk about the city that shall not be named. Thank you.
So don't come at me with my crappy French accent.
Yeah, guillotine.
Sorry,
what were you saying? Properly?
Guillotine.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Scottish and I say guillotine, so fuck you. I used to imagine I'd have to like sit with things covering my neck because I'd be like all freaked out and like feel all weird around my neck. Yeah, please don't speak about decapitation.
Okay, well, we'll skip to the third school of thought, which is rooted in psychological construction, sometimes mislabeled as other dimensional approaches. The ghostly mind is said to contain basic ingredients that combine and interact in complex ways to produce supernatural phenomena, including emotions. Identifying those ingredients is an area of active research, but current hypotheses include light, soul, and swamp gas.
Ooh.
In a construction mindset, an emotion such as boo is not a uniform essence, e.g. a supernatural kind, but a broad category with great variety. Regardless of which theory one subscribes to, most scientists agree that ghost emotions can be usefully mapped onto a one-dimensional circumflex along an axis ranging from friendly to scary. Haunting challenges. Scientists still know frighteningly little about the emotion of ghosts. Even trivial questions such as, do ghosts perceive fear, are at an embarrassingly early stage of inquiry. The challenges of studying ghost emotions are well known. First, despite the fact that more humans have died than walk the earth today, ghosts are incredibly difficult to find and recruit as subjects. Even when scientists recruit heavily in ghost-friendly areas, like abandoned warehouses, funeral homes, or the annual convention of the Helmetless Motorcycle Riders Association, many spirits are reluctant to leave the spot where they perished, let alone travel to an academic lab. Those ghosts who are genuinely interested in volunteering quickly become frustrated by the advertising flyers that universities researchers post on campus bulletin boards because their ghostly fingers pass through the little tear off tabs at the bottom. The few spirits, 8.2%, who finally do show up for duty often go unnoticed. Some labs have effective workarounds for these challenges. One popular recruiting strategy is to seat the lab at a round table by candlelight, holding hands and spell out emotion words on a Ouija board, a practice known as effective seance. A more ambitious strategy is to manufacture one's own ghostly subject as needed, i.e., converting an underperforming research assisting or two. But this creative approach rarely receives approval from institutional review boards. Second, ghosts who do reach the lab have unique needs. They cannot perform experimental tasks unless all lighting is extinguished, leading to inaccurate readings, increased accidents, and higher insurance premiums. Additionally, during trials, all lab personnel must maintain an unwavering belief in the supernatural, lest their subjects vanish in the presence of unbelievers, a requirement that wreaks havoc with experimenter objectivity. Moreover, 63% of research assistants flee uncontrollably during subject intake and debriefings and must be restrained in order to attend to their duties. Shall I go on?
Yeah.
Third, standard laboratory techniques do not work well on ghosts. Most experiments that rely on self-report will fail because the typical ghost subject, in response to any question, will recount a lengthy story about how it died. Likewise, much lab experiment is useless, and not only because the ghost body passes through it. MRI, for example, is effectively unusable on denizens of the spirit world. A short-lived MRI study of Headless Horseman is among the most infamous examples. One also must convince ghost subjects to set aside their heavy clanking chains in order to be scanned safely, and the strong magnetic field causes ectoplasm to dissipate instantly. Nonetheless, some experimental paradigms have showed promise. In a typical experiment, a ghost subject is presented with various evocative stimuli, like a photograph of its original living body or the face of its murderer, while it sits comfortably above a chair. Studies show that a ghost has a fast, instinctive urge to scare, followed by about 150 ms later by a more deliberate action such as moaning loudly or fluttering the curtains. Perhaps the most famous experiment investigated whether ghosts can experience fear. Researchers recruited 28 ghost subjects born between 576 BCE and 1961 CE with ages at death ranging from 11 to 96. 5 ghosts were headless, 6 skeletal, 9 completely formless, 2 on horseback, and 1 poltergeist. Each subject was placed into a cage where it received electric shocks while being shown a still photo from Ghostbusters. Later, the ghosts were shown the photo without the shocks. During each trial, scientists measured the ghost's ectoplasmic conductance, a sophisticated measure of supernatural current. In all cases, conductance remained steady at 0 with or without the shock. This suggested not only that ghosts cannot experience or learn fear, but also that they are, in fact, dead. So, so I will skip towards the very last paragraph. Nevertheless, more is learned about ghosts' emotions every year. Longitudinal studies in particular are seeing success since every single ghost subject remains available for all eternity. Technology is improving as well. New spectral adhesives carry the promise of attaching electrodes to measure ghostly movements. A new generation of wearable devices specially designed for ghosts who are missing limbs or who are formless reportedly is just around the corner. Even the aforementioned difficulties of MRI, which vaporizes ectoplasm, are being surmounted as increasing numbers of researchers realize that ghost heads are in fact already fully transparent. Therefore, we must boldly continue forward in our quest to understand the emotions of the ethereal. Only then can we claim to understand the full spectrum of emotional life from birth to death and beyond.
Whoa.
So
very academic.
Wasn't that
very academic and scientific?
The best part of this is they show all throughout the article. There's the footnotes and denoted. And look at this one.
Ah,
Isn't that so cute?
Such a cute little
Wasn't
article.
that
Who
really
was it by
cute?
again?
They really went all the way. It really was an article that was published in the Association for Psychological Parents by Lisa Feldman Barrett and Daniel Barrett. So Daniel Barrett, I believe, is an actual
Ghost.
psychologist, and the other one is a comedian and a writer.
Oh,
So
okay.
they
It was
got
super funny,
together.
though.
Wasn't that
I
so
love
cute
that.
they went
Yeah.
all the way with it? The best is
My
on the-
favorite was the boo. The boo.
I know, right? Scientific. Boo. The funny part is if you go and read the article, it's like a blog post, and then under it, there's like people that are mad. They're like, they're like taking these ridiculous. It's a joke. The whole thing is a big fat joke, and they're like,
So they
you
were
should
they
not
were
make
commenting.
fun of this field of science because it's very serious. And then someone else was like, I'm really seeing ghosts and I don't know what to do about it. Can someone please contact me? That poor person's Googling around like fear and ghosts and are ghosts real? And they find this poor fake article and this poor person's like all stressed out because they need help because they're seeing them.
Hang on a minute, Karen. What do you mean it was fake? I took the whole thing as being completely serious.
I know you did. That's why
I got a lot of takeaways from that. I think I've learned a lot about ghosts' emotions and whether they feel fear or not.
it does make you think though. It does make you think. Do they feel anything ever? They must. Why else would poltergeists be such assholes? They're so mad all the time.
I know.
They're not
I think
kind. They're not
yeah.
like helping you move the dishes in a nice way and setting the table. They're trying to literally like bash them and destroy them, They're not
But do
making
we-
the bed. They're pulling the bed sheets out from under people. You have to.
Yeah,
think
they're
about
fucking
these
nasty.
things. They are.
Do we
assholes.
do we see the ones that are happy? Or maybe the happy ones aren't bothering to do anything. Maybe the happy ones are just lurking in the corner watching you have a shower.
Yeah. Which again, I don't care about the lookers. There's nothing to see here.
Freaks me out.
But I thought ghosts we decided to have are like dead face. Like they're not even, they're looking like past you. They're not looking at you.
How do you know that? We decided? When did we decide
Oh,
that?
I felt like we talked about that once. We remember we were talking about the difference between a ghost and a poltergeist. And ghosts are like vacant stare, like duh, and poltergeists are like have intelligence. Maybe that was from the Battersea Poltergeist podcast that I got that
But
from.
the poltergeists are the ones that actually move things. But I think there are ghosts that can interact in a spooky, talkative way without actually moving things. And then there are the ghosts that are just almost like a tape recorder or
Right.
a video player. If you're a ghost from the 1980s that just goes back and does the same thing. So like walks the same corridor over
They're like
and over
stuck
again.
in like a
And is
time loop.
like a time loop and is absolutely not aware of
Mm.
the other things around it. But then, for
Like a-
example, Loretta's grandfather talking to her, that would not be a
Mm.
poltergeist because a poltergeist is the one that angrily throws things. So
Right.
there is a specific species of ghost, because I'm such an expert, that
Species of ghosts.
that doesn't
Ghosty
throw
eye,
things,
familiar eye. Yeah.
but it is aware of its surroundings and it can make noises and make itself known and all of those kind of things. And they're the ones lurking in the corner watching you have a shower that I'm not very happy about.
How about in the Battersea Poltergeist when the poltergeist is riding either unconsciously or consciously through the teenage girl and communicating that way, like writing notes and letters to people? Do you think that was
Yeah,
real?
if you were dead and you were pissed off that you were dead and that you were pissed off that not only you were dead, but you couldn't like enjoy the pleasures of eating your food every day and having a glass of wine and choosing what you wanted to watch on Netflix because your finger doesn't press the button, you probably if you could get a little note across, then you would, wouldn't you? Would you get a note across? I would. Like, fucking get me out of here. Where's my garden of pleasure that I'm supposed to go to.
Like garden of pleasure, like heaven. What's weird because I don't really believe in
Call it
heaven.
heaven because I don't believe in
I
it.
was gonna say I don't
So,
believe
but
in
like,
heaven, but I believe in ghosts. Is that weird?
so what happens if they're not ghosts? Because there's clearly not a ghost for every single dead person that ever
Right.
existed.
Right. Or maybe they're everywhere. Like, remember, because Ginger was like, I think they're everywhere all the time. It's just
Oh my God, no,
most
no. That kind of freaks me out.
people just
even
can't see
more.
them.
Ugh, no.
Just no. It's funny
Just no.
what
Can you-
people.
Ugh,
It's funny what
no.
people let in and out of their like belief system. Do you know what I mean? It's so fascinating to me because like my like Sean and my parents, like they're like ghosts aren't like I do not believe in ghosts. And I'm like, yeah, but they're there, whether you and people like see them all the time. It's not like they're not making this up. So it's real for like a gigantic number of people. So why, you know, like just because you don't believe in it doesn't mean that they're not there. But then you can use that same exact argument for anything.
For
like
everything. Like fairies.
Yes. So I guess is it just like the ghost science and fairy science who like it is a fact, but it's just if you haven't been presented with the right material for evidence,
And
that's why you do not believe.
Research paper on ghosts,
the physical evidence, like seeing them. But people see fairies all the time too.
I know.
And that's why I believe in them. It's because I feel like I've listened to a million people talk about their stories and they are not making that shit up.
No.
Same with Sasquatch. I'm in. There's so many stories. Oh my God. By the way, we have to talk about that podcast because we never did yet. The Sasquatch Chronicles.
Oh, yes.
And by the way, that podcast was recommended to me by one of my super dear and long-term patrons who's coming to Scotland with us, Kate. She has some really good ghost stories that she's told me before. And she's super cool. And we have to get her on the podcast to share her stories. But she's the one who told me about that podcast. And it's taken me this long to listen to it. But did you listen to that story from the Army veteran who was like out in the wilderness, who came across like a family, a freaking Sasquatch, and it like scared the shit out of him? It was terrifying. That he was not making that up. He was like PTSD from that whole thing. It was horrible.
I think I did, but you know something, Karen? I have the memory of a goldfish and it's absolutely rubbish. And I listen to so many podcasts and I listen to a lot of them when I go to bed and I'll fall asleep halfway through.
How do you listen to these while you're going to bed?
Well, there are certain ones that I wouldn't listen to because actually I have also been suggested a new one. Oh my goodness, you need to check this out.
What is it?
But I am not going to listen to it at bedtime. It is by the same people that do the Battersea Poltergeist. It's by the same guy. And it's a new series and it's called Uncanny. And it's real life ghost stories.
God, more.
Yeah, I'm not going to listen to it at bedtime. At bedtime, I listen to boring, like droney. Not that the podcast's boring, but like just not scary.
More even keel things. Well,
true crime, murder,
great. That because that's super feel good content. Oh my gosh, that Dan Cummings guy is hilarious.
I know. I actually listened to his Dark Ages one at bedtime last night, and that was a really bad idea because he was too funny, and I kept giggling, and I didn't fall asleep.
I have never belly laughed over a podcast like I belly laughed over his podcast. That
he's funnier than us.
He is. He is not only is he funnier, he's better, he's smarter, he's more well-researched. Yes, we are amateur hour.
His podcast is called Time Suck, but we're the suckers.
We
really in this comparison.
Yes. But I am still grateful to be able to show up every week and talk nonsense with you, though. It's my most favorite thing. Carving out. And I have to I gotta fight for this time. It does not come readily available. It is like I gotta fight tooth and nail, but it's worth it every week. It's so much fun.
I know, it's so much fun. Well, we have got one more week to squeeze in before Halloween is over. So
what are you gonna do? Sneak peek. And then we're gonna wrap it up because this is a speedy episode. It's only an hour. This
I
is
know we're so good.
we are
super
so good.
fast.
We're working on it.
I'm gonna find something spooky
Oh,
for
great.
sure. I haven't quite actually decided on anything, but I'm gonna do
Okay.
a little bit of reading and research. I'll find some spooky Scottish ghost story or something.
Okay. Well, I look
Find
forward
something
to
that's
it.
gonna keep you awake at night.
All right. Well, I look forward to it. And thank you guys. Thanks for listening. It was super
Thank you
fun.
for listening.
Thank you. And thank you, Loretta, for your stories. And if you guys out there
Oh,
have
yeah.
any fairy or ghost stories, please send them to us. One Scott, one not at gmail.com. We have got to hear from you. We will legit totally read your stories. Right, Lucy? I thought you were
For
frozen there
sure.
for a minute, but you were just spaced out on your cold medicine.
I'm just, I'm struggling.
You were giving me a ghosty stare. All right. I know you're not feeling well. So thank you for like being a good sport and being a listener to that ridiculous article. But Loretta's stories were so good. We will talk to you guys next week. Okay.
Bye.